had a good feed and an opportunity to chat with each other about what we've been discussing today. So we're going to launch straight into the final panel for today. This panel looks at ideological and socially engaging aspects of artist-run initiatives. Who are we doing this for, and how do we spread the message? As well as supporting emerging artists in developing a professional practice, ARIs are also non-discriminatory organisations where anyone, in inverted commas, is welcome to engage with art. While ARIs tend to be populated by dedicated practicing artists, they also allow for wider audience engagement and participation. We've brought together 3 speakers who have run organisations, spaces and projects that offer accessible opportunities to an interested public, focusing on issues that engage and are of interest to a wide audience. We're very lucky to have with us Miranda to moderate this 3rd panel. Maria is both a media artist and a DCRA research fellow at Victoria College of the Arts in Melbourne. In her art practice, she regularly collaborates with sound artist Norrie Newmark as Out of Sync. Her research focuses on the cultural economy of artist-run initiatives in Australia, in particular the experiences of artists who are involved in running or exhibiting in ARIs. Please welcome Maria and the panel.
It's thrilling to be here. As the introduction Max gave, I'm researching artist-run initiatives in Australia. I'm also doing a case study in Denmark, and that's kind of interesting, and maybe that'll come up later when we're all talking. Perth is just really, I have never been here before, and I'm just blown away. It's so beautiful, especially the air, which is so delicious. So let's get going. So the first speaker is Steve Ball. He's an artist and co-founder of Tactical Media Art Group and is head boy at CIA Studios, Centre for Interdisciplinary Arts in Perth. So perhaps I won't read this whole thing, but talking to Steve just now, he said that PVI has been going for 18 years, which I think is really amazing. And he's taught, delivered lectures, masterclasses across Australia, and he's currently the principal, PVI is the principal company in residence at CIA Studios. Oh, I see, sorry, I'm just reading my notes. Oops, very bad. But you're probably very familiar with CIA Studios and PVI Collective. So, Steve, over to you.
Hello, thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the guys at Paper Mountain. Sorry, I'm very tired. I have been back a week from the UK, and I'm still a bit jet lagged. But hopefully, I won't make too many mistakes in this this presentation. And to help me along, I have made some notes. Yes. So as I was introduced. I'm part of a tactical media art group called PVI Collective, and we do an assortment of things, including making playful, performative interventions in public spaces. But I'm really delighted not to be talking about that today. I'm going to talk more specifically about our initiative, CIA Studios, which stands for Centre for Interdisciplinary Arts. There we are. There's our new logo. Thank you. So for those that don't know, CIA Studios is based in a 2-storey old school building. We can get to see it. Maybe I'll use this. There it is. On the cusp of Perth City Centre, PVI were offered the space by the Department of Culture and the Arts for peppercorn rent in 2007, and went back to them a year later with a 2-year plan to initiate CIA, which they amazingly gave us seed funding for. Yay! Thank you, DCA. Is anyone here from DCA still? No, they're not. So we've since continued to secure strategic funding for it, which is pretty awesome. Okay. Now, at the moment, hang on, I just skipped a page. At the moment, PVI are principal company in residence at CIA, and we manage the building alongside our own arts practice and curate and co-curate the supporting program with studio residents. So CIA provides 7 dedicated 12-month-long R&D and residency spaces to local artists and groups. There is a yearly call-out, and we accept applications from all art disciplines that want to push their practice and take artistic risks. So we encourage applications applications from collectives and groups of artists looking to share a studio in order to maximise usage and also be sustainable in paying for the rent for that space. We have a national curatorial committee of senior peers that support us in the selection process. We have 2 flexible booking spaces for rehearsals, in progress showings, and for visiting artists, as well as short-term national residencies, which we are really keen to find ways to support. There is a number of what we call HQ research cells, or desk spaces. You know, we like to kind of make things a bit CIA and use some different terminology, but they are essentially, it is almost like a co-working environment in a shared office space in the building, and this provides access to a shared common admin resources as well as the opportunity to be around like-minded peers. So I think a lot of people have talked about their initial ideas with setting up their ARI. You know, our philosophy around setting up CIA was to try to generate an incubator space where artists could research and develop work, not in isolation, to have access to critical dialogue and peer support, to be able to exchange and skill share with each other, and to generally to try to initiate a spirit of collegiality whereby we could actually find ways to help and collaborate with each other, strengthening each other's practices and knowledge base. And all, of course, at a subsidised peppercorn rate for everyone. So alongside the annual residencies, our programme includes workshops. Workshops. So any CIA resident who has some specific skill to share, we actively encourage them to run a workshop for other residents and the extended community. Over the years, residents have run a didactic tools lab, a creative coding workshop, an instructional session on transmedia with follow-up individual consultancy sessions. There's been projection mapping workshops, info sessions on crowdfunding, and how to get the most out of your DSLR camera, which is this one here. We've done Sohan running that one. Sohan Ariel Hayes, who's been one of our residents for a number of years now. So yeah, PVI also regularly try out participatory experiments of work in progress, and our first stop for us is in trying things out around the CIA building, asking for volunteers from studio residents, which when they can, they very kindly oblige. So I suppose next up in the way of a workshop, we're responding to some discussions that have taken place between studio residents lately about protection of their IP. So we'll be bringing in a local lawyer, Michael Tukak, who's a principal lawyer from Creative Legal, to come in and talk about this, then follow up with a small number of 20 to 30 minute advice surgeries. So to clarify, we're not a venue as such, so can't hold public events. Without a public to directly engage with, our community or audience is mostly made up of associated peers and past and present studio residents. So instead of supporting final events with a general public, our tactic in a way is to hold small gatherings, talks, discussions, and in-progress showings to peers, as this is more in line, and also this is more in line with our CIA philosophy of supporting development over end product. Now next up, as part of our program, is morning teas, which does sound a bit trivial and a bit British, I know, but are really stress-free, regular gatherings of resident artists where we talk about what we've been up to. We also hold these to coincide when we have local, interstate or international visitors who want to be shown around the building and meet the artists. Ironically, after all these years of supporting studio practice, I would argue that the kitchen and its adjoining communal space are the most important spaces in the building and have allowed for informal sharing, planning, and the beginning of interconnected studio collaboration. Now, I'm not sure if I should show this next slide. It's a little embarrassing, but here we go. Oh no, not that one. Here's some of our morning teas. This is a morning tea with Dada that was held in our building, and we had to break out into a bigger space because there were so many people attending. And after the morning tea, they then opened up their space. That they'd been in residence in the building for a while and wanted to run a short workshop with those people that had come along. Okay, here's the embarrassing photo. There we are. Okay, so this is the first of our annual classroom photos for 2014-15. Not everyone is there, but to point out an example of what I mean by this idea of unexpected collaboration, I'm going to use this here, and I'm going to point out Sam Price up there. Now, Sam Price might be known to some of you. Sam Price is a music producer and visual artist. He's pretty quiet, hard-working, really nice guy, amazing artist, and in my books, CIA's very own super rock star. He occupies Studio 6 in the building and has recently been working with Chris Nixon. Here we go, we'll use this again. Where is Chris? Oh, there. Chris Nixon, just above Kate, up there. Okay. Chris Nixon. Chris Nixon is a graphic designer. You know, we are a multi-art form space, so we are open to more practitioners than within just the visual arts field. And recently they've been working together and have collaborated on a project for SciTech, which has recently been installed. And I believe, and I'm quite sure, that they first met in the kitchen. Now, this is Sam's really tidy studio space, which, the building was previously occupied by Whopper students, and when we first arrived, there were the remnants of a recording studio, and Sam Price is very fortunate to be in that space, as it has a soundproof recording area, and he can make a lot of noise in there. Oh, wrong way. Oh. There we go. So yes, Sam, as well as his audio practice, he's visual artist, and he was inspired by the transmedia talk that I mentioned earlier and the social media discussion that were held in the building. And he took the plunge and mounted a crowdfunding campaign last year, and that saw him develop his 3D projection mapping visual show called Stellations. Is this going to show? Yeah, there we are. Which he couldn't get up through the traditional kind of applying to DCA, and he'd had a couple of knockbacks over a couple of years, but wanted to find another way of getting it up. All right, next up is another part of our program. It's more of a recent one, I suppose, in the last few years. We call it KISS Club. It's a performance club for ideas in development, and it was created by a Sydney artist called Karen Therese. We had Karen over for a short residency at CIA a few years back now, where she was provided with space and the opportunity to work on her own practice and show a work in progress. Now, whilst in residence, let's just see if this is going to, there's Karen. Whilst in residence, Kelly McCluskey from PVI and myself got to co-curate Perth's first KISS Club with Karen, leading us and showing us the ropes of how it works. She has very kindly since then gifted us the concept to continue to roll out. So KISS Club, just to briefly mention, encourages practitioners from live disciplines to explore, test and experiment with their ideas and receive immediate feedback from an audience of peers. It's mounted on one evening, and 6 artists or groups present 10 minutes worth of material, of unfinished material, and there is also a Q&A session with an invited speaker. The evening gives us in my books, in my opinion, the evening gives us an insight into what's brewing away in the hearts and minds of experimental performance makers, and more importantly, a safe and supportive space to try things out. Okay. So next up, part of our program is Creative Labs, and this one's a bit of a slow burner. Perhaps these labs only happen every 2 or 3 years. And what we try and do, our initial tactic was to poach selected international touring artists and companies who were coming over, perhaps to major festivals, and convince them to extend their stay and come over to CIA to be in residence and run intensive workshops. So in 2008 we had Pacific Company over, and in 2011 we had Belgian hybrid arts group Reckless Sleepers run a national creative lab, which we applied for some additional funding for, and were able to bring over in-state artists to be part of that. So this year we have Helen Cole, who's an artist and producer from In Between Time Live Art Festival in the UK, coming over in October to run a lab with PVI in partnership with Proximity Festival. And this time we're really keen to support Helen in the development of a new work. So following that lab, she will be in residence working on her own project. Okay. All right, so this is an old photo from our CIA Most Wanted wall, which is on display in the foyer at CIA. We periodically update this. It's a sort of visual top 10 of PVI's professional crushes, and who we'd like to have over in residence. And here's who we've ticked off. There we are. So next up is another recent program, which we call the Geek in Residence program. And this is shape-shifted. In its first year of running in 2012, I think, we applied and got some funding to support it from Osco's Digital Culture Fund. With the funding with this role fully funded, we have the privilege of working with 2 amazing geeks in residence at CIA, and they job shared the role. We had a local artist, Steve Berwick from WA, and we also had a Melbourne-based artist called Lauren Brown, who's since now UK-based. So now, Lauren and Steve's residency was initially shaped around a series of questions and challenges. to activate their interest, as well as to expand the potential for CIA as a sector resource. So these were some of the questions that we were asking for them to think about and respond to. So how do we nurture a creative home beyond the building for artists to feel a part of? What digital strategies could be implemented to help us expand CIA services on limited resources? How do we maximise connections between shifting practices that occur in the building? How do we continue to develop relationships post-artist residencies at CIA? So their input pretty much revolutionised the way we think about how CIA operates and how we can get better at what we are doing. Not everything worked, but they were brave enough to try things out with us. The morning teas was their idea. Not a very geeky suggestion, but very, very practical. They made and implemented other suggestions, including a kind of closed, secret CIA Facebook group with past and present and future residents as members, which keeps the conversations going and the CIA community connected remotely. Now we continue this Geek in Residency programme on a smaller scale now, including a few years back, Chris McCormick, an independent commercial programmer, taking up a HQ cell, conducting his business from there. What impact did that have? Well, probably after conversations over a cup of tea in the kitchen, he ended up working with a number of CIA residents on their projects. Now, to sum up, I like to think of CIA as being as more than just the building. I mean, when we first moved in, really, it was the building for us. We couldn't believe how lucky we were. But now, I believe its potential is realised by the community that inhabit and remain connected with it. It's a supportive, artist-led community and a network as opposed to a building of studios for hire. I'll leave it there. Thank you.